In this edition of Let's Talk Criterion, we take a look at Spine Number 2, undoubtedly one of the most popular films in the entire collection. Seven Samurai finally getting an upgrade to 4K. It's a popular opinion that Akira Kurosawa is the most famous and influential director ever to emerge from Japan. His style, composition and precision is completely unrivaled, and his massive body of work speaks for itself. Kurosawa entered the Japanese film industry in 1936, following a brief stint as a painter. After years of working on numerous films as an assistant director and a scriptwriter, he made his debut as a director during the Second World War with the popular action film Sanshiro Sogata. After the war, the critically acclaimed Drunken Angel was released, in which Kurosawa cast the then little-known actor Toshiro Mifune in a starring role. And that, of course, cemented the director's reputation as one of the most important young filmmakers at that time in Japan. Now, these two men would go on to further collaborate on another 15 films. Rashomon, which premiered in Tokyo, became the surprise winner of the Golden Lion at the 1951 Venice Film Festival, and the commercial and critical success of that particular film opened up Western film markets for the very first time to the products of the Japanese film industry, and that in turn led to international recognition for other Japanese filmmakers. Now, Kurosawa directed approximately one film per year throughout the 1950s and indeed the early 1960s, including a number of highly regarded and often adapted films. This includes Ikiru, Seven Samurai, Throne of Blood, The Hidden Fortress, Yojimbo, High and Low, and Redbeard. And of course, after the 1960s, although he became much less prolific, he had later work, Kagemusha, Ran, and of course Dreams, continuing to receive great acclaim for all three. Kurosawa employed a number of recurring themes in his films. That's the master-disciple relationship that occurred between a usually older mentor and one or more novices, which involves spiritual as well as technical mastery and self-mastery. The heroic champion, the exceptional individual who emerges from the mass of people to produce something or right some wrong, and of course the depiction of extremes of weather, as symbolised in Ran and of course Dreams, and both dramatic devices and symbols of human passion and the recurrence of cycles of savage violence within history. Now, many believe Seven Samurai to be his best work. It occupies spine number 2 in the Criterion collection already and has a hefty 3.5 hour running time. This 1954 epic samurai film is certainly one of the director's masterpieces, and it's undoubtedly a great film of Japanese cinema, and of course for many fans it will be in their top 10 films of all time. This contains some of the most powerful action scenes ever conceived for a period film. And of course it's easy to take such a canonical work for granted. Film milestones sometimes need to be revisited to see if they stand the test of time. And 70 years on, Seven Samurai requires pleasurable critical scrutiny alongside of enjoying its humour, its sadness and its excitement. And while directing his epic, Kurosawa was intent on making an accessible and entertaining project for audiences. And this strongly shines through with a film that nevertheless concludes with the regret that the remaining samurai's victory is essentially Pyrrhic, a bitter fruit for the samurai, but a comforting triumph for the villagers whom they defend against the onslaught of bandits. Now, that philosophic ending is deservedly hard-won filmmaking. It's organic and brilliantly plotted. So, what about the plot? Well, it's 1586, and a gang of bandits are about to raid a mountain village. Now, their chief decides they'll hold on until after the harvest. The villagers are distraught. They consult the village patriarch and miller, Jisaku, a fine and wily performance given here from Kokuten Kodo, who advises them to hire samurai to protect their village. They have no money, of course, or even valuables, so they decide that they have to employ only hungry samurai. Now, their first choice is Kambai Shimada, played in the film by Takashi Shimura, a marvellous actor who conveys great and totally unsentimental dignity in his role. Japanese cinema of the post-war period was initially reluctant to dig into its samurai storytelling heritage, with the notion of blind loyalty to feudal lords being understandably less popular at that particular time. Now, the two most famous Japanese films released just before and indeed after Seven Samurai remain. It's Yasuhiro Ozo's Tokyo Story, basically an enormous guilt trip pointed at modernity for letting down their elders. And a film that we looked at recently on Let's Talk Criterion, Ishiro Honda's Godzilla. That's a nation's collective apocalyptic nightmare that somehow mutated into a still thriving merchandise line. Now, Seven Samurai is set in the late 1500s, during the Sengoku period of civil war. It was a chaotic time that found many of the samurai class without masters. Now, many of these very proud men became mercenaries. But imagine a story in which some of them, seven, if you will, decide to join forces against really impossible odds, because it was the righteous thing to do. Now, in revisiting classic Japanese heroism, but acknowledging the then current sentiment, the picture had its rice scroll, and of course it ate it too. Now, the tumultuous setting depicted in The Seven Samurai, in fact, it's the most expensive in Japanese history at that time, no doubt resonated with a Japan at that particular time that was modernizing rapidly, as did the secondary theme of the film, blurring the lines of a previously clear class system. The highborn Katsuhiro Aizo Kimura falling for the farmer's daughter Shino, Gaiko Shushima, amid the endless meadows of chrysanthemums, and of course Mifune's Kikukicho, revealed to be a fraud to the samurai class, but one who proves himself in combat. May feel like classic movie characters indeed, but to a post-war Japan in search of a new identity, these transgressions resonated on a much deeper level. Now, of course, I've mentioned humour in the film. I was more aware of the comedic tone in the first half of Seven Samurai. The testing of each candidate, for instance, for the job entails Katsuhiro, the untried son of a landowning samurai, hiding with his stick in his hand in a doorway, ready to beat people over the head if they fail the test. None do, for the learning process is Katsuhiro's. And the jovial manner in which the nervous villagers are reluctantly goaded and trained for action is a real delight to watch. And the warrior's first reaction, indeed, to the appearance of the roguish Kikuchicho, played in the film, of course, by Toshiro Mifune, is warmly amusing. Seven Samurai runs for 3.5 hours. The bandits make a brief appearance at the beginning of the film and only reappear about 1 hour and 20 minutes later. Now, Kurosawa has been introducing us with scene after scene of pictorial visual elegance to the villagers' collective response. And he's developed subplots like the delicately handled and socially forbidden romance that takes place between Kachihiro and the peasant woman, Shino, played by Kaiko Shishima. And artfully, he's preparing us for the definitive bandit attack. Now, when they do attack, Kurosawa's artistry as an editor explodes onto the screen with a ferocious poetry unequalled in action cinema. We've got rain by the bucketful, horses, mud, and a trapped cut-down adversary. And even the combat scenes in Wells's Chimes at Midnight, or the battle on the ice in Eisenstein's Alexander Nevsky, or the massacres in Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. None of them are as fiercely incisive as those that take place on Kurosawa's battleground. So, is Seven Samurai the perfect humanist samurai film? Almost. Toshiro Mifune does play things correctly in tone with his jokey, irresponsible would-be samurai character. Now, I believe that Kurosawa allowed Mifune to go off on his own and to improvise somewhat. Mifune has always been a remarkable wild and animalistic actor, appropriately exuberant in Sanjuro, Jojimbo and Rashomon, and he was rigorously subtle in High and Low and Redbeard. Now, of course, there were two Hollywood remakes of Seven Samurai. They were both called The Magnificent Seven, with the samurai being transposed to a Western setting. But the basic plot still remained the same and showcased a central cast of Hollywood actors, both in the 1960 film and the 2016 version. But since 1954, every movie, from The Dirty Dozen to The Blues Brothers to The Right Stuff, to Ocean's 11, even to School of Rock, owes a debt of gratitude to Seven Samurai. So, the Seven Samurai in the film, who are they? They are Kanbai Shimada, a war-weary but honourable and strategic Ronin, and in fact the leader of the Seven. We have Goro Bi Katayama, a skilled archer who acts as Kanbai's second in command and helps create the master plan for the village's defence. Then we have the third of the Seven Samurai, Shisharoji. Now, Shisharoji is Kanbai's old friend and his former lieutenant. The number 4 of the 7, Kyojo. He's a serious, stone-faced and supremely skilled swordsman. Number 5 of the 7. That, of course, is Heihachi Hayashida, an amiable, though less skilled fighter on the whole, whose charm and wit maintain his comrades' morale in the face of adversity. And number 6, well, that is Katsujiro Okamoto, the untested son of a wealthy land-owning samurai whom Kanbai reluctantly takes in as a disciple. And finally, the 7 of the 7 samurai. Well, of course, it's Kikuchi-o, a humorous, mercurial and temperamental rogue who lies about being a samurai, but eventually he proves his worth and, of course, his resourcefulness. So that is our 7. Now, the Toho company that actually released the black and white film in 1954 restored the movie in 4K for the movie's 70th anniversary, as I've already mentioned, and the Japanese studio is also, of course, known for its Godzilla films. So, Janus opened the restoration on Friday, July the 5th in New York at Film Forum, after which a Los Angeles premiere took place at American Cinematheque's Egyptian Theatre. And that was on Sunday, July the 7th. Now, the film has been restored in 4K UHD, along with a number of Kurosawa's other works, which also received theatrical presentations. Now, the Criterion 4K restoration comes to the collection without an HDR grading. It comes across 3 discs. One is a 4K and 2 Blu-rays. Now, one, of course, has the film, and one is replete with the special features, and they are: we have an original Japanese uncompressed mono soundtrack, and that is in 2.0 surround DTS HD master audio. 2 audio commentaries, one featuring film scholars David Desser, Joan Mellon, Stephen Prince, Tony Raines and Donald Ritchie, and the other Japanese film expert Michael Jack. A making of documentary created as part of the Toho Masterworks series, Akira Kurosawa, It Is Wonderful to Create. My Life in Cinema from 1993, a 2-hour conversation between director Akira Kurosawa and the filmmaker Nagisha Oshima. 7 Samurai, Origins and Influences, a documentary looking at samurai traditions and films that helped shape Kurosawa's masterpiece. Trailers and Teaser, a gallery of rare posters, behind-the-scenes photos and production stills. And a lot of essays, one by Kenneth Turan, Peter Cowie, Philip Kemp, Peggy Chow, Alain Silver, Stuart Galbraith IV, Arthur Penn and Sidney Lumet, and an interview as well with actor Toshiro Mifune from 1993. And the cover, of course, is the original cover art, and that's by Neil Kellerhouse. Of course, these are the same features that came with the original Blu-ray release, and now in the UK, BFI are releasing a 4K restoration that has HDR grading, and it comes in a package with its own set of features, so as always the choice is yours, which one you decide to get. The film is 207 minutes and it's in a 1:37:1 aspect ratio. In 7 Samurai, delicate human emotions and relentless action weave into a rich, evocative and unforgettable tale of courage and hope. It comes to the collection as a 4K UHD combo pack on Tuesday the 12th of November as existing Spine 2 in the US. I'm sure many will be picking it up in the US at the retail price with 50% off at the Barnes & Noble sale. In the next edition, we take a look at another Janus contemporary. That's Ryuichi Sakamoto's Life Coda Opus, with a performance of his final work prior to his death in 2023. So until then, from me, as always, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.